and welcome to Simplify TV, the web series and podcast for agency marketers, brands, media buyers, and business owners. I'm David McBee, and our guest today is Nick Jane, CEO of IdeaScale. Nick is a top Harvard MBA graduate who has expertly harnessed AI to revolutionize marketing. Under Nick's leadership, IdeaScale's marketing efforts saw a 10x increase in organic web traffic. IdeaScale's customers include major organizations that care about innovation, including Comcast, Pfizer, the U.S. Coast Guard, the U.S. Transportation Security Administration, and many others. Nick, welcome to Simplify TV.
I'm very excited to be here, and thank you so much for the kind introduction.
You're welcome. We're excited to have you. Nick, I know that in our conversations prior to this recording, you mentioned that you're someone who adopted AI very early. What year would you say you were dabbling in AI?
In my personal life, I've been using AI probably as early as 2016 or 2017. But right after all this ChatGPT stuff came out, I was probably an early adopter, both personally and professionally, within about 6 or 8 weeks of it launching. And IdeaScale wide, it was basically running our marketing, or the core of our marketing, within about a month and a half, 2 months of ChatGPT launching.
All right. So you were really in there early. I love that. So A, what were you doing that early? And B, how have you seen it change over the last, several months and years?
So the first kind of revolutionary experience I had with ChatGPT, or made me realize that this is something extraordinary that can be powerful for our marketing efforts, was I was in Amsterdam last February or January, so a year and a half ago now. My wife's getting ready. We're in a hotel. My wife's still getting ready. I'm sitting down in the hotel bar having a beer and some pizza before we head out. And I realized, hey, we don't have a social media presence as a reasonably sized global company at that point. We had no social media presence. We didn't have a dedicated social media person at all. Like, okay, I got 30 minutes to kill while my wife is upstairs getting ready. So I fired up ChatGPT and said, hey, design a social media strategy, create a whole bunch of social media posts on LinkedIn, and schedule all this stuff for me. So within 30 minutes, I made hundreds of posts that were customized towards my audience. I had them all scheduled and let it go on autopilot for the next several months. And the results of that was, with the next 6 months, I had more followership growth on LinkedIn than my next 4 competitors combined. And that's half an hour work. And that would have been something that was probably like a full-time job for somebody who was good at social media marketing, which, by the way, I sucked at when I engaged in this effort. And that's revolutionary, that a guy who has no experience at doing this, 30 minutes while having a drink and pizza in a bar, can accomplish what a normal full-time FTE would just a year and a half ago.
And yet people still aren't really embracing AI that aggressively. Would you agree?
100%. I think everyone's expecting or criticizing AI for the fact that it still screws up, without realizing that human beings screw up too. So we can't hold these technologies to an unreasonable standard that we would never hold a human being to. Imagine if you had to fire an employee every time he or she screwed up. You'd never have any employees. That's certainly not a standard we apply in any other aspect of life. So why do we apply that to AI?
Well, I think it's because if you put a math problem into a calculator and it gives you a wrong number, you throw that calculator out, right?
Well, there's problem. It's funny that you say that. I'm a math major. There's actually certain problems you can put into a calculator, Excel, that will cause the Excel to break. And we don't do that, right? Those are edge cases. We're actually fine with the fact that Excel gets 99.9% of things right and breaks 0.1% of the time.
I did not know that. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so how have you seen it change since that day, having your pizza and beer and social media moment?
Sure, that was an eye-opening moment for me. And then I realized, look, this is something that it can't just be me using it. It has to be something that will revolutionize how we do marketing and sales at IdeaScale. Not just marketing sales. We actually have adopted it for almost every function within the company. But I think there's 2 or 3 things that we've done. Number one, we've mandated that every department within the company needs to be using these technologies aggressively. Truly mandated it. It's not optional. If you don't do it, you basically don't have a job at IdeaScale, because it is an essential skill. Number 2 is we've encouraged every aspect of our marketing department to use this. So we help it decide what are the campaigns we're going to engage in at a strategic level, tactically do those campaigns, do our SEO optimization for us, do our white paper optimization for us, help us word things, help us brainstorm. It's literally at every step of the bris- decision making, brainstorming, and execution process of our marketing department.
All right, that's a really good answer on a high level. Let's assume I'm watching this and I've been using AI, but I haven't been as effective as I want to be. Can you give me like something really concrete that I could be doing?
Sure, I'll give you a result from like literally 5 minutes ago. Me and one of my marketing people were chatting about white papers. We've put out all these great white papers and case studies, and yet the landing pages on our website are not SEO optimized. And her experience is not doing SEO optimization, which is a skill set unto itself. What we did was we fired up Claude, or she fired up ChatGPT. We said, okay, we dumped all the content for the white paper and said, give me an SEO optimized title, meta text, focus keywords, and internal linking for this. And literally within 30 seconds, it spat out something that would have taken a human being like several days to do. And we just copy pasted it in and executed it. So in 5 minutes, someone who had no experience with SEO had a beautiful SEO optimized page. Now that is going to make our white paper show up on Google within a couple of days once the Google's algorithm updates.
That's a great example. What about for media buyers? Like if I'm trying to run an ad campaign and I'm doing paid social or I'm doing programmatic display or even a streaming TV campaign, how would I use AI for that?
Sure. So let's roll back the clock. And this is actually an area of expertise for me because I'm a mathematician, very good at statistics. And like digital marketing is all about, performance marketing, being good with the stats and understanding what your CPCs, CPMs, CPAs, all these funny acronyms are, right? For those of your audience who don't know, those are performance metrics on, measuring paid buying, digital buying. Um, 60 years ago, you would have had to hire a data scientist, someone who's really good at crunching the numbers from Google Ads or LinkedIn Ads and figuring out what all those metrics mean because it's complicated and requires fancy stat software. Um, what you can do now is one of two things. Number one is you can take all that data, dump it into your ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever AI you prefer, and say, "Tell me what the hell this means." That's number one. Okay, and you can do that, as a small grocery store owner, all the way up to the CEO of a $1 billion corporation. Or you can go if you want, and that's if you still want to be in the pilot seat. You can go a step further. Nowadays, Google and LinkedIn and all these paid media platforms have an automated AI campaign feature where the AI will just automatically figure out who your target audience is, will figure out, hey, what are the campaigns, figure out the wordings for your campaigns, and automatically do all that A/B testing for you. So you don't even have to think about it. That requires a certain level of comfort, just letting go of the reins. But if you're able to do that, those AIs now massively outperform even the 99th percentile of human paid digital buyers.
Are data scientists in danger of losing their careers to AI, would you think?
Yeah, but so are we all, to be honest, right? Like as the AI gets smarter, I'm taking course on ChatGPT because I'm definitely afraid that even as CEO of a company, are my skill sets still going to be relevant in a year or 5 years? AI is coming for all our jobs, so that's why we have to continue to like upgrade our skills and stay on top of this stuff and harness it. Because if we're not harnessing it, our competitors certainly are.
How have you seen other people using AI in marketing?
Sure. So I think there's a couple of key areas, right? So SEO is, which I've already mentioned, using paid digital automated buying agents, which we just talked about. C, content writing. So actually writing your blogs and white papers for you. Now there's a pitfall there. AI, if you're using it ineffectively, is going to turn out generic content. And if you're turning out generic content and so are your competitors, it's kind of a race to the bottom. So you have to be careful if you're actually using it to create content rather than optimizing pre-existing content. Um, but yeah, churning out content and then brainstorming. I think one of the things that a lot of people in marketing do is like, hey, we have a bunch of creatives. We're going to figure out what our next campaign should be. It's going to be focused on healthcare. It's going to be focused on short form video. But if you have smart people doing that, you're also going to start coming up with generic ideas and not think outside the box. You can literally tell AI, think outside the box, and it'll come up with things that you would not have otherwise come out with, including if you just give it all the stuff you've done before, it'll come up with something from left field that you and all your creative team may not have come up with by yourselves, which is really cool because you can tell it literally think outside the box, and it will.
I'm looking forward to trying that. I have a quick story actually. Just a couple of days ago, I was working with an advertiser who had a budget and he had certain goals. He wanted to use Simplify's products to achieve those goals. And we have a lot of things. We have streaming TV, we have programmatic media, we have so many different options, right? So I just told ChatGPT, here's the budget, here's the goals, here's the products. How do you think we should allocate all this? And it spit out a pretty darn close, good, just marketing plan that I think, would have taken me or my team a little bit more time than we would have anticipated. So I'm seeing a great use for it for, determining strategies to go forward with a marketing plan as a whole. What do you think of that?
Yeah, 100%. As we are literally creating overall marketing plans or strategies using these generative AI technologies. One of the things that we've been very careful on intentionally, though, is to make sure they're co-pilot strategies, not handing anything entirely to the AI, except for media buying, and that's specifically because the AI has a propensity to put out generic content and is giving the same advice to your competitor, and so we want to make sure it has something that is a little bit smarter than what our peers and competitors are putting out, so we're always ahead of the game.
Yeah, I think the key to that is taking what AI gives you and then tweaking it a bit with your human soul and your human
Yeah.
brain. Yeah.
And prompt engineering, like that cool thing I just mentioned about thinking outside the box. You would think that's so stupidly obvious, and yet just giving it those keywords, think outside the box, makes it come up with something more creative than it would have otherwise.
I feel very strongly that I'll be using that later today, and all of our listeners
I won't give
probably.
you all the tips and tricks though, but there's so many cool hacks you can use with this technology to get you ahead of the game.
You got any other quick favorite hacks before we?
The other one, this is well known, but like I'm surprised that 95% of people aren't using it. It's called the persona pattern. So when you're chatting with ChatGPT, the very first prompt you should do, or Claude or Gemini, whatever your favorite AI is say, act like XYZ. So act like a world class marketer, act like an SEO analyst, act like a data scientist, act like a chief financial officer. Those keywords will make it act much, much smarter within the context window or within that chat you're having with the AI than it would otherwise. It's crazy how that's a well-known, well-studied pattern. There's like academic papers out on it. And yet, surprisingly, 95% of people still aren't beginning their ChatGPT chats with act like XYZ.
Brilliant. I love it. All right. So if you had a time machine and you could go forward 5 years, what do you think you would see AI doing in marketing?
Candidly, potentially everything. The way these technologies are advancing, it's terrifyingly frightening how good they're getting at doing our human jobs. So the fact that every 6 weeks we get a new AI model able to do anything or able to do things that it just couldn't do 6 weeks ago makes me scared about what these things are going to be able to do in 5 years from now. So I would not be surprised that like almost any human job that exists in marketing has not fundamentally changed or been rendered invalid by within 5 years from now. Hell, it's invalid like today. Like I would not hire an SEO analyst with the skills that he or she had 18 months ago because those skills are totally useless. Like crafting a good meta tag or like knowing how to use focus keywords or internal linking. Yeah, I can do that 100 times faster and probably 10 times better than any human being can.
Like, we all better get really good at using AI if we
Oh
want to
no!
stay in the game.
There's that old Intel CEO or founder quote. What was it? Andy something. Only the paranoid survive. We are at IdeaScale. We are incredibly paranoid about the power of these technologies, and not just for marketing, for any aspect of our business.
Now I'm all freaked out. Thank you so much for that.
But remember, your competitor. You should be freaked out, but remember, your competitors are probably not adopting it as quickly as you are, and that gives you a huge advantage, right?
All right, I'll try to hang my hat on that. All right, before we go, I do like to ask all my guests if they have a favorite podcast or a book that they'd like to recommend to our audience.
Sure. My favorite podcast, which I've been listening to for about 2.5 years, is called The History of Literature. Uh, and it basically rather than reading out books or poems to you, it's telling you about kind of some of the cool stories behind some of these famous novels or poems or stories we've read in the history of their lives. So it's much more about the history behind the cool literature rather than the literature itself.
My wife's a history teacher, so I'll definitely be turning on to that. Thanks. All right, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Great. 3 ways. Number one, you can go to ideascale.com, sign up for a free trial. Our software is entirely free for people less than 100 or for organizations less than 100 users. Number two, I'm very accessible on LinkedIn, respond to 100% of messages there, Nick Jane. Or finally, you can email me directly at nick.jane at ideascale.com.
Thank you so much for being my guest today, Nick.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
And thank you guys for watching Simplify TV. Please help us out with a comment, a like, a review, and be sure to follow or subscribe to be informed about new episodes Simplify TV is sponsored by Simplify, helping you to maximize relevance and multiply results with our industry-leading media buying and workflow solutions. For more information, visit simply.fi. Thanks for joining us today. I'm David McBee. Be awesome, and we'll see you next time.